Welcome to Fight News Now Extra. My name is John Pollock. We've got John Ramdeen and Robin Black stopping by to discuss all of today's news. We're going to be discussing the fight that went down prior to Friday's Bellator 145 card involving two champions, a test camp underway for a major star in the sport, and the UFC has announced a main event for their Fox card in January. It was reported on UFC Tonight this week that light heavyweights Anthony Johnson and Ryan Bader will headline the UFC's Fox card on January 30th in Newark, New Jersey at the Prudential Center. The light heavyweights have been linked together for a number of weeks, as it makes sense to put the fight together if Jon Jones is in fact fighting Daniel Cormier for the title next. Bader has won his last 5 fights, and Johnson is coming off a win over Jimmy Manuwa. Freddie Roach, who has been a longtime associate of former welterweight champion George St. Pierre and worked with him throughout his career, spoke to Fight Hub TV and stated that St. Pierre is going to put himself through a 6-week training camp and see how he feels at the end of it, and will decide to either return to fighting or retire for good. St. Pierre has not fought since UFC 167 in November of 2013, where he narrowly defeated Johnny Hendricks and later vacated the welterweight title. The talk of a settlement between Nick Diaz and the Nevada Athletic Commission continues to grow. The latest report from Ariel Helwani on UFC Tonight suggests that a settlement could be reached where Diaz serves an 18-month suspension and is fined $100,000, which would be a reduction from 5 years and $165,000. Last week, it was first reported that settlement talks were ongoing between the Diaz legal team and the commission. And a fight erupted at the Bellator Fighter Hotel on Wednesday involving lightweight champion Will Brooks, featherweight champion Patricio Pitbull Freite, and his brother Patricky. There's no dispute the punches were thrown, with Brooks posting a photo of his shirt, which was bloodied. However, the two sides are disputing who started the incident, with Brooks claiming he was jumped while talking on the phone, and Patricio stating that Brooks threw the first shot. MMAfighting.com reported the police were called to the scene, but no charges are going to be given, and the commission in Missouri has stated that it is out of their jurisdiction to fine or suspend the athletes. We have contacted Bellator and are still awaiting a statement. Tune in on Saturday night as we will have the prelim fights from Sao Paulo, Brazil, airing exclusively in Canada here on Fight Network. 4 fights coming your way, including Gleison Tibau taking on Abel Trujillo at 155 pounds. Here with John Ramdeen and Robin Black, lots to discuss today, including Bellator 145 having an unofficial pre-show at their hotel on Wednesday involving the Pitbull brothers, Patricio and Patricky, and lightweight champion Will Brooks. Who started what, we're not really sure because both sides are disputing the facts, but we know that police were called to the scene. There's not going to be any charges laid. The commission says this is out of our jurisdiction. Do you have any issue here in terms of Bellator? I mean, they allow them to fight on Friday, and they're pretty much giving them a pass here. Hey, fights in hotels, that's cool. And that kind of goes against everything that I think this sport tries to convey to the public, that these fighters are not. And I think this is a pretty embarrassing look for these fighters.
Sure, but at the end of the day, fighters are fighters. And we know lots of fighters that behave badly during excursions, whether they're traveling, whether they're staying at home. And this is part for the course. Everybody's trying to be professional, but at the end of the day, guys are dehydrated, guys are emotionally charged. We don't know the circumstances, but what we do know is this is actually very, very good for Bellator because we're talking about it. Interest is being created right now, and nobody is really, really hurt from this situation.
Yeah, I've decided I'm not going to watch the show. I'm really not.
Yeah.
I'm disgusted. Like these are elite professional athletes,
like Jones and Cormier
artists.
at their
Same
weigh-in.
thing. That
you watched that fight.
I did watch that fight, but I was equally. I did watch that fight. That is a very good point. But you can't have this. You know, they're supposed to act like not only professional athletes, but like martial artists. And this is really embarrassing. And I'm embarrassed to be a part of a business like this. You're not supposed to be thugs. You're not supposed to be driven by emotion. You're not supposed to act like ass. You know, like they're ass hats. It's embarrassing. And I'm not going to watch the show.
These are adults, and they decided to do this, and I hold these two responsible, 3 in fact, involved in this whole thing. But this was something that we knew it was premeditated because these two were going back and forth in August online, saying the next time I see you, I'm going to slap you. So how are these guys even being in close proximity of one another when you know that there's some issue brewing here, and it resulted in the worst case scenario? Had one of these guys suffered a cut or not being able to fight and you lose 1, if not 2 championship fights on Friday,
that's where Bellator would have intervened. I think if there was some situation where one or both of the fighters weren't able to...
if Bellator was really upset about this...
They're not.
they would have said something.
They just signed Kurt Angle to be a part of their
That's
their,
a great
their
point.
roster.
You know, this is a terrible look for Bellator. This is a terrible look for these athletes. Terrible look. And like I said, not just professional athletes, but martial artists. Have a little respect. But beyond them, and they should be judged for this, you're right, Bellator should be blamed. You know what? There are 30 fights a month in the UFC. How often do we ever see this happen? There's a lot of criticism of all kinds of different business practices people hurl at the UFC. But why don't we see this happen? Because it's unacceptable. Yeah, you're going to get away with it if it's John Jones. They're going to go, look, man, don't do that. You've embarrassed all of us. But he's got so much leverage, he'll get away with it. But why do you think this doesn't happen? Because these guys have been told from the Ultimate Fighter on down, you do this, you're cut, you're fined, it's in their contracts. You won't see this in the UFC. And this is a bad look for Bellator. They have to do something about this.
As we move on over to the UFC, they have announced that Anthony Johnson and Ryan Bader, a fight that does make a lot of sense. It's going to happen January the 30th on Fox. 5 rounds.
Ryan Bader.
Ryan Bader. He's got, I mean, hey, this is someone that has won 5 straight. At this point, you beat Anthony Johnson. Pretty hard to say that this guy does not get a future title fight because of a lack of challengers. Anthony Johnson, to me, you beat him. There's no one else in his way.
Yeah, but he might have been thinking that after the 3rd win, the 4th win, and the 5th win.
That's true.
But again, it also comes down to Glover Teixeira. What happens if he comes out and he really handily beats?
We're going to have an unofficial tournament of guys John Jones has beat to get either a second fight with
That's
John
a great
Jones.
idea. Sign me up for that.
While we're talking about John Jones, I don't know if you watched this guy deadlifting 585 pounds.
Outrageous.
He is really attacking strength and conditioning. Before you go, oh, well, you know, he'll be too big. It's like he has laid out his plan. It's a strength developing time, then a skill developing time, and then a conditioning.
With his team.
With his team, it's all the right stuff. Probably for the first time in his career. And that's terrifying. He's never really done any of this stuff. And it's also a very good sign that he has his stuff together. Very common thing for somebody who either has a drug problem or parties too much or whatever category he'll put himself in. When people go in and really commit to the gym, it's generally a sign that they're moving away from that type of lifestyle. That's a really scary thing. These guys aren't going to fight John Jones because if he goes out and he dominates Daniel Cormier, he's going to go fight at heavyweight. He's huge right now. He's powerful right now. John Jones has a dream of being, again, the greatest of all time and even more than he's ever been.
I really believe that he's looking at the Daniel Cormier fight, and that's his exit from light heavyweight. I think he has one more fight at 205 pounds.
I think John Jones is very intelligent. He's turned down fights before. John Jones, the type of guy, give me the biggest fights you can give me. If somebody comes along at the 205-pound division, besides Daniel Cormier, that's interesting, and a fight with Anthony Johnson, for example, would be interesting, I think he'll take
Beyond
it.
that, there's nothing.
Over him.
Yeah.
Go up to heavyweight, fight over him. That's
Awesome.
what I want to see.
All right, he's Robin Black, John Ramdeen. Stay tuned. We've got more Fight News Now Extra.